welcome everyone here today. It's great to see you as we join us for the Speakers Institute corporate briefing for our 2022 programs. We've got an exciting day lined up for you. My name is Craig Johns. I'm the CEO and Managing Partner of Speakers Institute Corporate, and I'm joined with our lovely team who I will introduce shortly. What I'd like you to do is to pop into the chat your name, where you're from, and maybe what your job role is. If you can do that, that would be great. So at Speakers Institute Corporate, we inspire great leaders through solving ineffective communication and decision making. And we do that through communication, leadership, well-being, and organizational design solutions. And so today we're going to take you on a bit of a journey. We're going to talk about some future trends in the space of learning and development. We're going to showcase two top programs that Fortune 100 companies are seeking for 2022. And we're also going to give you a bit of insight into some of the research that we are doing in the world of communication. So keep an eye out for that as we go through. Now, Speakers Institute Corporate is a team that is based in 5 different countries around the world. We come from very diverse backgrounds and from diverse ideas and our experiences, and even the places that we've worked, whether that be in consulting or whether it be working in banks or for big engineering companies or even high performance sports. So we come from very different backgrounds, but we all love to be working together as a team as we deliver really important learnings and help inspire great leaders in your organizations. The Speakers Institute corporate DNA is very human-centric. We have a very heart-centered approach where we look at how, for each individual we work with, how can we really help them? It's not just about going, oh, we know all the knowledge and we're going to pass it to you. No, it's about how can we go deeper, understand each person, understand each organization, and how can we help them get the most out of what we can provide them so that they can go on to improve as an individual and obviously help support their company success. For us, what is super important inside Speakers Institute Corporate is our ability to nurture rising talent, whether it be someone who has been facilitating for 40 years or someone who might only be a young 20-year-old. It is how can we help each other continue to grow? And it's a beautiful part of our team, and that everyone is always looking to how can they help each other become better? How can we ourselves become a better facilitator or a better team member? As we go through today, we're going to showcase a few things. And what I want you to do is make sure that as we go through, pop things in the chat if you have questions, and we'll try and answer those as we go through. There's not going to be time for an open mic today, but there will be chances. Actually, sorry, there will be right near the end. We'll do a bit of a Q&A. But throughout, please pop your questions or thoughts into the chat. That'd be really, really helpful as we go along as well. So we're going to dive in at the beginning. We're going to talk about the 5 future trends. We will then look at, as we go into the different areas of our program offerings. So we're going to take you through what type of offerings we have. Then we will head into what is our facilitating approach and what are we learning from our clients around what is and what isn't working in facilitating. We will then take you into our project that we're looking at in regards to business storytelling. We have a great question for you there as well, which we'll dive into. Then we'll showcase you a couple of big programs, and then we'll give you an opportunity at the end to ask questions around our programs, maybe the way we facilitate, even around the way we work with our clients and the way we relate with people and that whole discovery process. And then we'll conclude for the day. So that's what we're going to do over the next hour. So it's wonderful to have you all here today. Now, we have a great team who are here and in behind the scenes as well. So we have Jess Carver, who is working the technical behind the scenes and helping everyone from a technical point of view. We then have Debbie Donacius, who is here. She is our client relationship manager. She is based in Brisbane, Australia. So she'll be answering questions in the chat and also available if you want to contact her afterwards. We then have two of our facilitators. So I'm just going to introduce them to you quickly. We have Dimian Curry. Now, Dimian Curry is an award-winning physicist who has worked for multiple different companies, including Fortune 100 companies. He's even run his own animation studio. He is a master facilitator and a great keynote speaker as well. We also have, so welcome Dimian. We also have Jessica Kiley, and Jessica is a senior facilitator, master trainer, and program design manager for Speakers Institute Corporate. And she has had a wonderful journey in both entrepreneurship, been a facilitator working with corporates and government universities for many years, and is also written a book, co-authored a book called Businesswoman, which has been very successful as well. So please welcome Jessica. And
hi there.
And hi, Jessica. And to lead us in for today, for our first section, I'd like to hand over to Jessica, who's going to take us into what are the top 5 trends in the future that we're seeing with corporate training.
Thank you, Craig, and an absolute pleasure to be here with you all for this hour today. We appreciate your time. And great to see that it's an international audience. We have Sarah here all the way from Mongolia, which is so very exciting as well. And yes, I've been asked to have a look at a little bit scoping forward. What are these trends that we are seeing? Each day, we're obviously in the training room with organizations across the globe. What are the sort of things that we're starting to see and being asked for? As well as even a little bit further, what can we see is probably just over the horizon as well? And also, what is actually working? Because we, especially here at Speakers Institute Corporate, we are really focused on making sure the learning is not just a tick of a box. We are very passionate about making sure that it is highly personalized to the group that we have, and they're actually then putting it into practice straight away. But as a futurist myself, and I love looking forward, what are these sort of top 5 trends that we're seeing? And I will share my screen now so that we can go through and you can grab a little screenshot at the end as well. And it'll be interesting to hear if it's things you're seeing as well in your roles, in your organizations, in your countries as well, of course, to see what's coming up there. So we're going to count it down. So at number 5, we've got data-driven learning. Obviously, data analytics, data-driven, everything is the big buzzword. And we are very much seeing that within the learning and development space as well. Now, that comes down to making sure that there is a mapping of the need, what needs are there, and looking at the data that's coming through in organizations, and then mapping that to the actual training that's happening. And then also we're seeing though that data-driven learning to then start mapping out the actual impact of it as well. So we make sure, that's why we're really cognizant of making sure, are we hitting the mark? How can we see if we're hitting the mark in order to, I guess, have the data there too? But that real is helping to align business performance too, right? In checking in what's actually required, what's delivered, then the impact that that's seeing for the organization as well. So that's sort of like our number 5, the good old data analytics. It's very much a buzzword these days. Number 4 is actually around communication and story. Now we know that well-being is actually the number 1 corporate training area at the moment. It's a big growth area for us at Speakers Institute Corporate in what we are being asked to do. But ultimately, still sitting at the heart of a lot of this future needs is communication. No matter whether it's looking at the data and then doing in the tech field, because we work with a lot of tech clients, basically. There are a lot of the Fortune 100 clients, and they're people who we have in front of us are technically incredible at what they do. They understand a lot of what, how to put the codes together, how to analyze, how to then do all that sort of responsiveness. But when it comes down to how do I communicate that? How do I actually not just be an information repeater, but how can I actually be an information curator and communicate that really clearly in a way that's really confident and is connected. And the big part of that is story and business storytelling, and helping those tech people, especially in those organizations, to start to see where are these stories in their organizations, in their roles, in their projects they're a part of, that we can actually draw out and help them to tell those stories, but they're business stories. And it's beyond a case study, so that it helps to create a human connection, but ultimately for who they're communicating with, it creates the visual. And it's not just all detail. And no matter, I was just watching it, I think I saw there's someone here from Accenture, and I happened to be doing a bit of a dive over the weekend into the metaverse and the Facebook. And I saw that Accenture has actually been quite far advanced in sort of some of their onboarding stuff happening in the metaverse. Now, ultimately, whether we've got an avatar standing there or ourselves in a training room or in front of the C-suite, ultimately communication still sits at the heart. Can I communicate clearly? So we can see that this is not going anywhere as a trend. It is super important. And then also we're seeing that trend towards hyper-personalization. Now, we take it very much to heart as communicators, because context sits at the heart of really effective communication. And in order to make it contextual, we have to personalize it. Now, that's where the data-driven comes in as well, because then you can start to see what are people needing and asking for, and then providing it at that really hyper-personalized moment. But it's also about that micro-learning. Yeah, like at the actual time, I've got a C-suite presentation coming up. I can tell that it was perhaps not my best, strongest suit the last time I did it. Where can I go and access that sort of training right now? Within 15 minutes, 30 minutes, that micro learning is happening to put it into practice straight away. So we're definitely seeing the rise of that really happening there. And more that will actually be so much more possible as the tech around AI, VR, augmented reality starts to have a lot more adoption. The personalization will take on a whole nother level. But we also are seeing this balance between online and actual in-person training, right? People do want to come back into the training room. They really do want to have that physical presence. Now, particularly where some of them have the actual training is harder to learn online because it's physically has to happen, that they're really looking forward to going back. So it's that balance, but everyone in organizations have started to see online works. Online can actually be quite powerful. Hybrid is starting to develop in how that happens within organizations as well. And that, of course, the online and hybrid decreases the costs, and we can actually then offer a whole lot more to the people in our organizations. So online training is not going anywhere. It will definitely develop to a whole other level. And our final one in terms of our top 5 future trends, so you can grab a screenshot of that so I can come off the share, is that live coaching in small groups, which links in with hyper-personalization. So for us, we make sure that part of every single program, people are getting direct feedback immediately. So not after you've read the program and you've done the module and you send it to the trainer and then maybe 2 days later, we do direct feedback straight away. So that loop, that feedback loop, but in small groups, so it still feels safe and connected and we're all learning from each other as well. That feedback loop is a lot shorter and we see greater transformation from that. So it's exciting times in the learning and development space, and utilizing the technology and seeing what's coming forward in order for us to really help people elevate their skills in the core area that we really love of communication, well-being, and leadership. And so in order for us to learn a little bit more about those exact program offerings, Craig, can you help us learn about those?
Thanks, Jessica. Actually, what I'd like everyone to do is pop into the chat, which one of those 5 do you think is most relevant to your organization? Which one of those 5 do you think is most relevant to the future of your organization right now? We'd love to know. You can pop them in the chat. Hyper-personalization. Thanks, Joanna. Number 1, data. Very good. Number 5, yep, that important of that personalized coaching. So we're getting a really nice mix here, which is fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is take you through a little bit around, from a program point of view, how we interact with our clients, what programs we have available. So we're going to touch on a few and Csuite kind of showcase just a little bit around ones that we think are going to be really important coming up in 2022. So for us, it's all about the client. Our whole organization is designed around client centricity. What does the client want versus what does the client actually need inside their organization? How can we work with them to uncover more around what are the problems or what are the issues or what are the challenges they're facing, and how can we help them solve those, and so they can perform a lot better. So I'm just going to look here. I'm just going to share my screen and take you through just kind of a couple of key components that kind of wrap up the way we look at our programs as well. So you should see there on the screen. So, our client is obviously right at the center when it comes to client centricity. We obviously, when we first connect with them, they like to know what the options are. And so we showcase a range of options, and every corporate training company do this. So, yes, we have our different options. They're available, they're online, we have a brochure, etc. as well. And we will put the brochure into the chat later on in the session. So we would like to be able to share that. But in most cases, we want to be able to create what is specific to them. What is a bespoke program? I don't think we've ever taken an off-the-shelf program and directly put it into an organization. Every single time we are working with them to understand what we actually need to do to that to make it specific to them. We want to be able to connect to their culture, to the challenges, to the people they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And then we set about co-creating the program. And quite often we will work with them to adapt it following the first one, if needed, to take it to that next level. But we've had many cases where we get it right first time because we spend so much time in the discovery phase. And whether that be working with the learning and development team or HR team or people in culture, or actually interviewing staff from whether it be a C-suite down to even someone who might be directly working with clients on the ground. And so it depends on each case. But overall, what is super important for us is that we build the relationship and the connection with the people we're working with. We're all people, we're all human, and we want to be able to help you be successful in what you do, and also that'll help the company. From a delivery model, we obviously have online, which has been obviously the way to go over the last 18 months. And we've developed a really, really cool way of facilitating online, which Damien will speak about later on. We're also setting up to do hybrid work, and now some of our team have already been working with hybrid. So we're looking at how can we how can we upgrade that? But there are some challenges, right? It's not that easy to get a hybrid model working where you've got to connect online, you've got to connect with your audience around you and keep everyone engaged the whole time. And then obviously we're starting to go back to in-person as well. So we have those different options, but it depends on what country and how easy it is for us to get there in person. The online one is so helpful because then we can draw on different expertise from around the world at any moment. From a programs point of view, we have communications programs. So anything from presenting to C-suite, whether it be slide mastery, how do we develop your business storytelling? How can we help your company be a more client-centric company? So these are some of the areas that we delve into in communication. We then have leadership programs, whether it be working with your emerging leaders or with your executive level and taking them up so they can go beyond their level of leadership to the next level and think about how they can take that human-centric approach to leadership. So there's aspects in there around leading high-performing teams or developing a successful culture, even things around how the leadership performance mindset. From a well-being perspective, we look at programs not about how can we solve your well-being problems after you've already developed say mental health issues. We're not there to be the counselor. We're there to do a lot more proactive solutions. So we look at how can we help you ensure that the well-being of the individuals and the organization can be developed before they get too big. So that's kind of the space we sit in now, whether that be around change or whether that be with regards how you're dealing with crisis or how you can perform better through energy management. And then finally, organization. And this is more in a space where we go really bespoke around what are your needs in regards to strategy or looking at from a culture piece, how can we help you design a structure that helps lead more effectively in that space. And for us, there are two kind of real key pathways that we look at. One is in-house corporate training, and we love going in-house and going really specific in that bespoke model to help you internally. But then also we have coming up shortly our professional development for individuals. And our first one of those will be on December 6th and 7th, which is mastering presentation, communication and presentation to C-suite. So we will be doing, we will explain a bit more about that later on in today's session as well. So that's a quick insight into how we look, and these programs can either be a plenary type session, could be integrated into your own corporate events or training, or they may be a one-day half-day session, then up to multiple days and even long-term blended learning as well. So that just gives you a quick insight into our programs, and you can see more on our website and also on the brochure we'll share with you later. Now, I would like to hand over to Dimian, who's going to talk a little bit around our facilitating style and give you some insights into what we've learned.
Thank you very much, Craig. Can I have a thumbs up if you can all hear me? Good form. I thought it was worth spending about 5 minutes talking about what works in training. Now, you might remember from my introduction, I started my professional life as a research physicist. I am totally a man of evidence. And what we've been doing over many months is looking at the evidence. Like, there's a lot of things we believed would work in training, but what we did after every training program of the participants and also the learning development team is we asked them what worked. We didn't say on these factors, how would you rate it? We said what worked, and we let them volunteer what was most important, and unambiguously some themes emerged. One of the most interesting ones was people really dig the diversity of our team. Now, if you ask people, how important is a diverse set of facilitators? Everybody would say, yes, very important. But for people to actually volunteer it, that was a big deal. Like the fact that there are people of many different cultures. In fact, even just the three facilitators you've heard so far, such different styles. Like you've got, Craig, who's the mild-mannered high performer, Jessica, unbelievably smart, but off the scale likable. I'm more the the high focus, high intensity academic. It's like a style for everybody, and people are pointing to that as being a major factor in their experience. Now, it's focusing on the experience that is a big deal. One of the issues that has always been with training, corporate training, whatever, is we're overtrained and we under-implement. Now, my guess, everybody could see that. Like we overtrain, but we under-implement. And so what has worked in terms of solving that problem? One of the things, and it was kind of a tough one, is we cut down the amount of instruction. Now, that was kind of a little bit radical because like a lot of the people we deal with, like really smart and getting more information, getting more insight. It's like crack cocaine to a lot of our participants. They just can't get enough. But we've cut it down. Like it'll be rare for us to be talking or instructing more than 20 to 30 minutes without going into a breakout room. And even within that 20 minutes, we're actually getting them to do things. Like for instance, I might just share. Well, we talk about a structure, right? We have a structure for presenting, but we put it into context and we get people to map. How do you think? Like on the vertical scale, you big picture and detail. And each one of you can actually think right now. Are you big picture or are you detail? And then, are you analytical or are you visual? Now, obviously, you'll be different. You'll be, different places on that horizontal scale at different times, but your home will be one of them. And from that, put yourself in a quadrant. And we explained that the model that we use communicating actually speaks to each one of those quadrants, because the fact is, and I'm even looking at it in the chat, the way people are answering, you will get people from all over. You'll get people from each one of those quadrants. So even within a 20 to 30 minute instruction section, there'll be things for people to do, but then we break out in the rooms and we actually use it. Like we will actually say, okay, based on the structure we gave you, prepare and deliver a 3-minute presentation. And just like Jessica was describing, the tightness of the feedback loop was, again, a major theme in what people were saying they did. Right? Like they present and immediately they give feedback. And it's the nature of the feedback is the key. Because we don't just give a technical feedback, we actually, with permission, of course, reach into the person and see what's holding them back. Like I just think for each of you, what is an issue you have with presenting? Like, is it eye contact? Is it speaking too fast? Is it pausing or whatever? Now, okay, there are technical fixes for each of those. Like, if your eye contact is poor, look at the camera lens or look at the audience. But we will always go deeper. Why are you not looking at the audience? Why are you not looking at the camera? Why are you not able to pause? What is holding you back? It is that level. And as I said, it is always with permission. We're all judging about, like exactly how far, how deep can we go? But then one of the most interesting things we do is actually live feedback. And this one is, you can imagine, we trod very carefully when we started doing this, but the feedback has been phenomenal. The people who participate in this particular exercise of live coaching, people describe it as the highlight of their session, where in front of everybody, again with permission, but in front of everybody, we take someone through a particular technique, and I might be saying something within, like landing the big message that they want people to remember, looking at the camera and pausing. And we'll take one person, we'll coach them through it in front of everybody. And we'll actually stop them. I said, okay, that's good, but we want you to pause a little bit more. Try that. And they try the sentence, a little bit harder, pause a little bit longer. That's it. And with massive congratulations at the end, people describe that as a breakthrough moment, So the things that really are working in training, that tight feedback loop, in fact, the tighter we make it, the better it is. And focusing on the experience that people are having, going deeper than technical, going into what's going on with you, like what is holding you back. But as I said, always with permission. But one of the more interesting things has been about story, getting massive feedback about story. And Craig, you want to introduce the research we're doing on story?
Very good. And look, for us, we embed story all throughout the organization, whether it is, for me, leading with our team, whether it be social media posts, whether it be writing a case study online, and in every single program, there is an element of story. But it's interesting, right? So I'm sure all of you have kind of heard this or experienced this, that everyone is talking about the importance of business storytelling. And most people agree that it is really important in business. Then we asked the question, and this started a bit of research for us, which is ongoing right now. Why is business storytelling not being implemented? What do you reckon, Dimian?
Yeah, well, this was a research thing, so obviously it comes back to me, and we and it's stymied us for a long time, because, like exactly as Craig said, everybody agrees. Like, you ask people, how important is story? How sold are you on telling stories in business? And everybody was saying 8, 9, 11 out of 10, but they don't do it. They don't do it. And you ask the question and we weren't getting answers. And this is quite common in research. You ask people what they want, to ask people what's holding them back, and what they think is not actually what's going on. We actually observed. Came down to 3 things. Came down to 3 blocks that people have. And that's no permission, no time, and no model. First up, and I want you to think of some of the people that work on your teams or in your organization. Why are they not telling stories in presentations? Now, obviously, it's not always appropriate, but so often people just lose or miss out on the opportunity. And first up, people honestly believe, particularly when they're talking with Csuite or people of high status, clients, they don't have permission. It's not they feel they're not allowed, or feel they're wasting people's time. It's more of a high status thing. Okay, everybody knows the best speakers in the world tell stories, the leaders tell stories, the best communicators tell stories, but they're just giving a business presentation. They're giving a quarterly update or something like that. What role is story? So they feel, first up, no permission. Bigger problem, no time. Again, we deal with a lot of smart people. And the problem with smart people, they cannot bear the thought of their audience not knowing and understanding things as much as they do. And so they take a 10-minute spot and they'll put as much as possible into they'll shoehorn stuff into their PowerPoint. And they just don't have time for the story. It's like a luxury. They don't have time. And finally, and this is an insidious problem, the way story is typically described to people is completely inappropriate. You probably gathered the background behind me is completely real. They are real books. Craig mentioned I used to run an animation studio. Story was a big thing. In fact, a full shelf behind me, a meter wide shelf behind me, is on story. And it's a story about the classic hero's journey or the heroine's journey, the story arc, the lead character, that sort of thing. And that is just not a model for most business presentations. For keynotes, completely relevant. But for most business presentations, it is not. But still, people are being given, like most, you go to most places you learn about story, that's what you're taught, and it just doesn't land. So what we've done is we've looked at different story models. In fact, what we do is we take people from where they are right now and just take them up a level. For instance, a lot of people are good at telling case studies. We say, okay, from a case study, we can do just these couple of additions, turn it into a story, just wrap it in a human experience. That's an example of moving it up a level. And actually, Greg has been really good. He's actually identified 10 different levels that people are at. And so the idea is to get people just up a level. Are you able to briefly show that, Greg?
Yeah, sure. I'll just, so these are kind of the 5 kind of broad areas. So on facts and figures, situation, case study, storytelling, story showing being the most advanced. And here's, kind of there's kind of 10 levels here where we go through each of those kind of aspects. And so a lot of people sit around the top area of thoughts and facts. So they're great for sharing facts and figures. They might be able to give an insight. And we hear a lot of people give case studies, but actually going to that next level of storytelling and adding a human experience and showing it, there's just too big a gap right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, good form. Because then the secret is just rather than giving people the ultimate story showcase structure, just helping people just get up a level and then get up another level. That we are finding is starting to work, giving them a simple language that is relevant to business and just bring them up a level. That's about it. So Craig, what about dealing with C-suite? So what if we, in terms of dealing with C-suite? In fact, Jessica, you want to talk about how we train people to, or what's the important things to think of when we are dealing with C-suite?
Yes, Demian, I'd love to today. So yes, we find that actually it's one of our most popular programs with the Fortune 100 companies that we get to work with is presenting to C-suite. We like to call it mastering presentation and communication to C-suite. And it comes about, as I said, because many people have those technical skills of how to do their job, but when it comes to that moment of speaking to someone in that level of C-suite, they are often getting quite nervous. They add too much detail, as Demian has said. But in particular, what we find is most of us have a default mode when it comes to presenting. We've never actually been taught, right? Unless you've gone to seek it out yourself to learn how to up-level your communication at an executive level when there's often less time, higher pressure, more people involved. So we really like it's a 2-day program that we do. And I've actually got one this afternoon over the next 2 days that we're doing for EY and one of their groups there across Asia, their Asian group. And it really helps to become aware of that default mode in the first place through that feedback loop in terms of smaller groups, presenting and getting that feedback. And in particular, we really like to look at understanding C-suite in the first place. Like, let's try and get into their minds a little bit, into their worlds. That helps with context, right? As I sort of said before. And then really important, one of my most favorite parts to do is about how to achieve clarity. Before you even turn up, what is that key focus, that one repeatable core message that you want to come back to? Not 10, not 50. And believe me, when we go and do like slide mastery and they show us some of their slides, we're like, oh my gosh, let's come back to this core focus. So how do we find that clarity in the first place in terms of what I want to say? And then actually some of our key structures, because people love structure, and following that sort of formula idea that we have been able to put together to allow better structure in those presentation moments. But then we also work on that confidence as well, that gravitas almost in a way in those particular moments, so that people, as Demian said, we really do start to look at what is that that's sort of stopping you in those moments. Let's help you with something as simple as being okay with silence, or finding the moments to pause and slow down when the assumption is if I say more, I look more intelligent. So I like to see in these two days that we do, we really help people to notice their default mode. What is my way I just naturally fall into every single time? Become aware of it, and how can I actually try something different with some feedback and some encouragement and some changing it on the spot. And I'd love to show you one of those key structures that we use, which is called our authority communication framework, that really helps people to structure that presentation, whether it's just the opening or a longer presentation. We show them how to do that. And it could be something any of you in this room might want to use if you've got a presentation coming up very soon. And we are happy to share that with you. So it can be used when you're about to propose a course of action, but it also can be modified if you are walking in more of a sort of sales point of view as well. And the elements, the key elements we help people learn in terms of this structure is a problem, a solution, evidence, example. That's where the story comes in that Demian was talking about, and then detail. And if you remember Demian's quadrant and all of those different quadrants, this particular framework links directly to it, so that it allows to make sure that you have something for all of those quadrants, because ultimately in our audience, every single time, C-suite are always going to be a myriad of those quadrants. So you want something for all of them. You want those who are visual. You want those who are big thinking. You want those who are detailed. And this particular framework really helps to tick off all of those areas in a succinct way. We go a little bit further as well, and we help with some starting sentences, some suggested sentences. And then we actually start moving straight into breakout rooms with our participants and putting it into action straight away. And many of them like to do lots of evidence or lots of problems. So helping them to see like, where can we pull back on areas? Where can we add a little bit more in areas in order to really land their message in those moments when presenting to C-suite? So it's a really powerful 2 days where we see quite a transformation over those 2 days. But we also have some really great other programs. Craig, what are they?
Very good. Thanks, Jessica. And look, that program, as we talked about, is one of the top 2 Fortune 100 companies are requesting for 2022. And we thought it was really important to actually open that up to individuals who want to improve their professional development. So as I mentioned earlier, that we are doing a program on December 6th and 7th that allows individuals to come along rather than us go in-house. They can learn these same strategies around the psychology of C-suite and how to structure their presentations to create impact with C-suite, whether it be internally or externally with clients. Now I want to just talk a little about another program called Leadership Performance Mindset. Now, inside your organizations, you have a lot of people that are emerging leaders. You know, they might have moved up as a technician or a specialist in their field. Then they become, a manager for the first time. And then next minute they're a leader and they go into a leadership role. And most of the time they're not trained for it, right? They're trained as a specialist and then they get thrown in, and we've all seen them. And And a lot of them try too hard and they become very micromanaging. So this program here is for them, but it's also for those that are already established leaders who might be very relentless in their approach. You know, there might be those high achievers, but they might also be a little bit ruthless and reckless sometimes. We want to try and keep them, yes, they can be relentless, but we want to keep away from that ruthless and reckless space. So we look at the mindset of leaders for both emerging and established senior leaders as well. And I think what's important in here is once you get the mindset right, the leadership takes care of itself. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to dive into just a small area of this now, because yes, we'll, you know, in the program, we look at confidence and the belief and the agility to thrive, as well as how you manage and utilize pressure. But most importantly, leadership is around energy management. It's the heart and soul of everything when it comes to leadership. How do you manage your own energy so that you can sustain a high level of performance? How can you manage the energy of the room, the energy of each individual? And obviously that starts with things like your nutrition, whether you exercise, the way you recover with purpose, and you free your mind. Yes, they're kind of the foundations, but what are the other mental strategies? So I'm just going to show you just a brief one here, because this is really, really important when it comes to leadership. Now, what we know when it comes to leadership is those in the room that have kind of that gravitas, who have the power, so to speak. I don't really like the word power, but it's kind of, they have the influence of the room. People can feel it, that influence. So what is unique about them? And I'm not going to reveal it straight away, but I'm going to show you what is the first strategy of being able to get to that spot. So it's all about breathing. Now, you've heard lots of breathing, and people talk about breathing lots, but there's a couple of key things here. If you're high breathing up in your chest, okay, you have low authority and low kind of trust, and it kind of sounds a bit forced. But as soon as you lower your breath deep into your diaphragm, you then get high trust and high authority. You know, people ask me quite a lot, how do you manage to stay so calm and so relaxed under pressure? How do you make me feel calm? And it all comes down to breathing. And I've been doing this, like I was very fortunate to be a swimmer when I was young. So we spend lots of time going up and down the pool. And as a triathlete, it's very methodical and metronome-like. So your rhythms are all based on breathing and how you can slow it down. So that's kind of a key part. But the breath controls your heart rate. And the most important people in the room, the ones who can control a conversation, the ones who can have the greatest influence, have the lowest heart rates in the room. So how do you lower your pulse? Now this can come from, now this all starts from your breathing, right? If you take a breath in, so if you exhale really fast, it'll speed up your heart rate. If you inhale quickly and fast, you will actually start, and then a slow exhale, you will actually start to slow your breath down. So you can control it. But then what is the result of having a lower heart rate? Well, now you get to control the energy in the room. You're a lot more calm and relaxed, which will then feed on and flow on to other people. So it's that breath, control your breathing to lower your pulse, and then to control and manage the energy of the room. So that's just a quick insight into one of the kind of frameworks of that leadership performance mindset. But I'm really fascinated about client centricity and where that's going, and the power of relationship selling. You know, there's lots of people that can do transactional selling and solution selling really, really well. But when it comes to relationship selling and that long-term effects, it's got to go up a whole nother level. And there's no one better to explain this than Damian Curry.
Thank you very much, Craig. I got to tell you, I love this one. Now, I'm going to be careful about saying this because, you know, any good leader, like any good parent, should not have favorites. But this is my favorite. Like, seriously, because I have not seen a program like this, and it was created with a particular client in mind for their salespeople. But it turned out with almost no modification, we're able to apply it to pretty well any professional that has to deal with any other professional. Because if you look at, like, in fact, each of you, like in your roles, you you deal with other people and you need to influence. And it's, and your success, your effectiveness depends on the quality and the effectiveness of your relationships. And so the approach we took, we looked at the, like the evolution of selling, and forget the 80s when, when selling was just awful. In the 90s, selling became, like we heard about relationship selling, but it was about being everybody's friend. Like, you'd walk into someone's office and you'd see a set of golf clubs and you go, oh, you play golf? I also play golf. We should play golf. That was, well, God, who's got time for that? Right. It evolved into deep counselor selling, where you were seen as a valuable problem solver. And that's good. That is really good. But it is very limited, because it means you are only as good as your last solution. And you are seen as being a technical adjunct, like almost like a subcontracted brain. There is so much more. And this is, again, for you internally, as well as any client-facing person, any an accountant, not necessarily a partner or one of the deal makers, the rainmakers. We're talking anyone who is client-facing. We get them to go deep. One of the breakout rooms is we do, and this is a fascinating exercise, is where we go beyond the role, go beyond the task to the person. Ask questions. We get people learning how to ask questions that are unique, answer questions that are unique to that person. In other words, if you ask a question, like, the typical question people ask is, what's your KPI, or what's, what do you find difficult at the moment? And anyone who's in that same role, any client who's in that same role would answer probably the same way. You ask the question differently so that you get an answer that is unique to that person. And once you've done that, you have reached them at a different level. I'll actually share my screen, because I will show you two of the questions that we ask. And this is a workshop, right? What questions will make your clients pause and look upwards? In other words, a question that makes them dream. Like, what are the opportunities? Like, where do you think we can go with this? Like, how good can it be? You ask the questions, okay, this is, okay, we might, have this audit solution, but what do you think the next step is? Or what, if time wasn't an issue, what would you love to do? And when you see the client pause, look, like, you sit back sometimes and look up, they're dreaming, they've gone into their personal space with complete permission. That's one, when you're getting people to dream. The next one, when you're looking at problems, what questions will make your clients exhale and look downwards? Then they've opened up. Like, you ask, like, you talk about the problems they're having, they're trying to solve. And then you ask something like, how bad does it get? They pause, they exhale, they look down. And they look up and say, I can't remember the last time I picked my kids up from school. That's how bad it gets. When you get to that level, then you've got personal. Then you have a real relationship that's not based on friendship. It doesn't rely on you knowing how the kids are doing at school and things like that. It shows that you become the default go-to person whenever they have a question. That, the whole thing with relationship selling, and then we go beyond that to some of the things Craig was talking about of having presence under pressure, the breathing, the clarity, having the confidence in yourself to say less, but with higher levels of clarity, being able to get people to tame their advice monster, like to not go straight into advice, but stay in, like, rather than going straight into this is what you need to do, stay in the why a little bit longer, right? Understand them more deeply. Those are things of high performance. They are aspects of high performance that come directly into the quality and the depth of a relationship. And if you can master relationship, you can master your professional career. And as I said, it started with salespeople. It spread to every professional at every level in an organization, even when they're client facing or not, even for internal people. In fact, HR people could well do with more of these questions. But that is absolutely, I know I shouldn't admit it, but that is absolutely my my favorite program. And but I'd be interested in what what generally people are thinking, how we're all reacting. What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, that's good. And that program there, like around this whole thing around relationship selling is inside the top 2, along with mastering presentation to C-suite. It is in the top 2 programs that people that Fortune 100s are requesting. Now, I will give you, when Damien talked about this program where we first developed it for a Fortune 100 company. It was actually for a very small company in Australia who they've gone on to deliver. We've delivered another program for them, exactly the same. And for next year, we'll continue that program, but we've now added 2 more different programs throughout that organization. They are embedding it into their onboarding, as well as their continued refreshing and development inside their company. And, anyone can sell something that is transactional or even a solution, but when it comes to selling from a relationship perspective, that's when you get the long-term benefits and you stay connected as a company, but also potentially as you move on to another company, they will want to follow you as well, if you are the person who is holding that truly deep relationship. But yes, as Damien said, we'd love to give you the opportunity now to ask any questions. So is there anything there that kind of caught your attention, or while you've got the experts like Jessica and Damien in the room, you would love to ask them a question, or myself? Here is your opportunity. No, they're all pretty good. They seem to really enjoy that. It could be anything to do with the way we connect with you from a discovery point of view, maybe going a bit deeper in our facilitation, or even understanding our programs a little bit further. Maybe even question our future trends. Do you see something else that's in the future as well?
Or challenge Damien to find a book in the background that
people often ask how many I've actually coloured in.
Now we've got a question in the chat from Delphine, and the question is, how do you make a positive connection that will last? Jessica, Damien, who would like to answer that one? It's a great question, Delphine.
I'm actually more interested in Jessica's opinion.
Thanks,
because she's really good at it.
How do you make a positive connection that will last? Now, Delphine, I'm assuming are you talking more about when it's a communication moment, or are you talking about just a one-on-one? If you give a little context.
Well, if you can answer like on different scales, on a one-to-one and on a presentation.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays with online, we have the opportunity to actually do coaching or one-to-one, but we also have a lot of opportunities to make presentation to a bigger audience.
It's true. And we do want to make positive connections that last in a way. My number one is always about like being yourself and being authentic. Often in our programs, people are like, oh, I can't do it like you, or I can't do it like Damien or Craig. And we really stress that we're not trying to turn you into another version of us. We have one of those. So more around being yourself. Obviously, you need to know your stuff too, in terms of what you're actually going to talk about. And that's why some of that preparation beforehand, every single one of us here, Damien, myself, Craig, we put a lot of time and effort into preparation beforehand. So that then when you're actually there and turning up, you know what you're going to talk about, which helps you to be more of yourself rather than wondering what you're going to say. And then in terms of when we go into like non-verbals, and I think Delphine, you might have done some of this in some of our programs as well, non-verbal and our body language can definitely help us come across as more likable in moments, and then other moments more credible. So definitely things on that likable side are the smile, is the open body language as well. It's the movement of the body even, yeah? So for us as humans, when we see someone moving a little bit more than just sitting still like a newsreader, we gain more connection with them. It feels more real. So that would be some of my tips. What about you, Damien?
Probably the one overriding thing, more than anything else, what underwrites every single long-term positive connection I have ever developed is to have a mindset of being more interested in them than you are in yourself. In other words, like even before I came here today, we looked at, who was coming, read a few things about you, only so I feel like I know you. I do not have a really good short-term memory, but when I'm training physically, like in a room, as long as there's fewer than 30 people, I will do my best to remember everybody's name. And people ask, like, why do you do that? And say, it's because when I know your name, you're an individual to me. When I don't know everybody's name, you're an audience. But when I know your name, we are no longer an audience. You are individuals, which changes the way I relate to you, which changes the way you relate to me. And it's that, and the reason for it is purely to be more interested in the other person than in myself. And that is the opposite of self-consciousness, the opposite of self-consciousness. And we find that we don't need to teach, like in terms of some of the things that Jessica was talking about, we tend not to need to teach too much of, eye contact and timing gestures and things. We do it for the really advanced stuff, but for most people, we don't need to teach that because we explain, if you're not worried about yourself, if you're more worried about the people you are trying to shift, your eye contact follows, your body language follows, the connection follows, everything follows. And this is as true one-to-one as it is in a group. So Delphine, there is no such thing as a short explanation from me, but basically the headline is being more interested in the people you're talking to than in yourself. To what extent have we answered your question, Delphine?
Oh, I was waiting for that question. I was going to say, yeah, let's check.
Okay.
Delphine, does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely. It reminded me of how when I get speakers on stage to speak to audience, how there's the difference between speakers who are so Primadonna, think themselves as divas, as opposed who are there to like, okay, let me see how I can serve the audience. They are not here to hear me, but they are here for themselves. So yeah, it's such a subtle difference, but there is a huge difference in the way they come across, and the energy is different too.
Such a great observation, Delphine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very good. And I think for me, like one thing that's really important here, that when you're connecting with people, building that relationship, etc., is people want to know that you care about what they do. What they do matters, right? So you care about what they do matters. That is so important when you're connecting with people, when you're leading with people, building that relationship. We're coming to an end of today's session. It's been fabulous to have you all here today. And Debbie's going to pop into the chat shortly as well, our brochure, so you can have a look at that as well. I'm just going to pop in there our website address and our LinkedIn if you wish to follow us and see what we're doing. We pop on into our social media quite often, some insights, and give you examples of us in action when we are training. You'll get an insight into our people, and you'll see a lot more thought leadership in there as well as we move forward. So feel free to check those out. We've got coming up on December 6th and 7th, for those who are interested in doing professional development for individuals, we have the Mastering Communication Presenting to C-Suite program, and you can find that on the website as well. But, or whether you're interested in in-house bespoke corporate training as well, you can come and chat to us, reach out to Debbie or myself, and we can, have a conversation with you. We'd love to get to know you more and understand what your needs are and see how we can help you, whether it be now or in the future. Let's do a big thank you to Jessica and Damien for their great work and wisdom today, and to Debbie and Jess in the background But most importantly, to all of you who have joined us today for our Speakers Institute corporate briefing for the 2022 programs, we hope you got lots of great insights out of today, and we look forward to continuing our conversation and speaking with you in the future. Thank you very much to all of you. Have a lovely day, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.
Enjoy your day.
Really nice spending time with you all.
Yeah.